Well, good morning. How's everyone doing this morning? Well, that was a bit anemic. How's everyone doing this morning? All right, false enthusiasm, thank you so much. Good morning and welcome to NANOG 67 here in the beautiful city of Chicago, Illinois. Thanks everyone for making the trip out here. I think this promises to be one of our best NANOG conferences. My name is Dan Golding. I'm chairman of the NANOG Board of Directors. Joining me this morning will be Sean Kennedy, who's the chair of the NANOG Program Committee, and Don McNeil, who's CTO of EdgeConnects, which is our host and sponsor. Thank you, Don. Woo-hoo. Two other folks that I'd like to call out for special recognition. This turned out to be a very difficult venue to get connectivity to, as sometimes hotels are. I know that's a shock to folks who've done conference connectivity. Jay Borkhagen and Peter Jacoby, Jay from AT&T and Peter from RCN were really great about helping us get that connectivity. They really bent over backwards and did some great work. So thank you, Jay, and thank you, Peter, for getting us our outstanding conference connectivity. Can you advance the slide, please? There we go. So for folks who haven't been to a NANOG conference before, and for that matter, for folks who have, well, let me talk to you for a minute about what makes a NANOG conference different from a lot of the other network or connectivity or IT conferences that you might go to. First is the attendee demographic. At a lot of the conferences in the sector, you go and you see a lot of sales folks and you see a lot of product folks. NANOG is a little bit different because the vast majority of attendees here are working engineers, working network architects, working network software developers, folks who are actually producing network product, making their networks function, for everything from small research networks and enterprises to the very, very largest web scale content providers, carriers, content delivery networks, hosting providers. In addition, NANOG is a little bit different in a couple of other ways. Most of the other conferences you see out there are commercial in some way. They're run for a profit. They're put together to get the most people possible in a room. NANOG is very different in that we're run by a nonprofit organization, which is composed entirely of volunteers with a small dedicated professional staff. There's no ownership by a major media organization. And our program here is peer reviewed. There's not a lot of pay for play. There's none of that stuff. If you want to get a talk in at NANOG, you submit it to the program committee, who will help you shepherd it through the process and help you develop that talk. And then you'll go ahead and deliver it to your peers, who know that they've received a peer-reviewed talk and who are not such a captive audience. And this is a NANOG conference, and for folks here say, yeah, there's a NANOG conference 3 times a year, this is what you guys do. NANOG has been spreading its wings a little bit over the past couple of years. In addition to these large NANOG conferences, which have anywhere from 800 to 1,400 folks come to them, in addition, we have several NANOG on the road conferences every year where we hit smaller, I don't want to say secondary markets, but markets that aren't as big in terms of internet engineering, where we get 50 or 100 folks to come out, anywhere from 3 to 5 times a year, and we take some of the best content from the full NANOG conferences, we take it on the road. Occasionally we do in partnership with Aaron. It's proven to be a very, very successful event. One of the other things we're doing a little bit differently is we have a commitment to support new operators. And by that, we don't mean like, startup cable providers. Really what we're talking about here are new network engineers, new network software developers, new network architects, folks coming into our field. Because a quick poll question, for folks who've been in this field for a while, do you find it difficult to recruit new network engineers? Yes, lots of raised hands. It's kind of a pain. So one of the things that NANOG, the organization, hears consistently from our members is how important it is that we support new operators, that we encourage new folks to come in. We've got a couple of ways we're doing that. One is the NANOG College Immersion Program. This is something that's just been started in the past year and a half or so, and the idea is that we find specific academic programs that are likely to produce future network engineers, and we invite the faculty and students as part of an educational program to come to NANOG as part of their studies rather than just a trip. So far it's proven to be extremely valuable, and I think most folks here like it a lot. For the NANOG College immersion students in the room, can you stand up? All right, I'll say thank you so much for coming. One other thing that's really, actually before I go on, one other thing that we've done, and we started at this NANOG that's super important, is yesterday we had our first ever NANOG hackathon. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later in the presentation, but this is another part of our commitment to support new operators, and it's part of NANOG's sort of acknowledgement of the fact that network engineering is changing. We're no longer in an era of I'm going to configure a router, we're now in a configure of I'm going to write some code to configure a router, or whatever the case may be. And that's a very, very different situation. Lastly, vendor neutrality. One of the things that's very big about this conference is, although, there's some very big names who sponsor the conference, all the sponsors sort of respect the four walls of the room. And that is to say that there isn't any vendor-specific presentations. There's not a lot of marketing where instead we have a strictly vendor-neutral approach that's supported by both our premium and individual meeting sponsors. Those are the folks who allow us, through their generous support, to really stay vendor independent, as NANOG has been now for over 20 years. So what to expect here at NANOG 67? The general session content, that's the room you're in right now. You'll see sessions and tracks and panels of wide interest in this room. We also have some specific tracks on the agenda for specific areas of interest. We have tutorials. There's a couple of them this afternoon that are generally really outstanding technical content. And the beauty of the tutorials, it's not just something to go to learn something. It's something to go to listen to how the presentation is going, to get those slides, to bring them back to your company, and to do that tutorial for the rest of the folks that you're working with. There's tremendous value. Some of our tutorial presentations have been performed outside of NANOG hundreds of times to great success. We really urge everyone to check out the tutorials. In addition, we've got lunch Monday and Tuesday, today and tomorrow, with great networking. Tomorrow night, we've got the Beer and Gear, which is our premier social event where you have the chance to socialize with your peers, as well as talk to some of the great folks who help support NANOG. And there's a social event that's coming up Wednesday night that Don is going to talk about a little bit. In addition, we have two special events. We have the Newcomers Lunch and the Members Breakfast by invitation only. Newcomers Lunch is obviously for people who are new to NANOG, and the Members Breakfast is for members of NANOG, the corporation, as opposed to folks who attend NANOG, the conference. If you'd like to come to the Members Breakfast, the easiest way is simply to sign up to become a NANOG member. We're always looking for more members. So welcome to everyone. There's approximately 862 attendees. This number is probably already out of date. It's probably a little bit higher. Of these, 92 are attending their first NANOG meeting. We have 17 NANOG College immersion students who are here. Please make a point of approaching them and talking to them. Of our 575 members, 209 are attending this conference. Thank you to our members for doing such a great job of supporting us. Yeah. And as I mentioned, for the first time, we have NANOG Hackathon attendees. We had 56 folks register for our first hackathon that occurred yesterday, which is an incredible turnout. Thanks for Facebook that sponsored it. Thanks for the program committee who helped us set up that first hackathon event. Really amazing. We haven't really done the postmortem on this, but I think we can safely say this is an event we're going to continue in the future. You will see more NANOG hackathons. So, with no further ado, let me introduce Don McNeil, who's the CTO of EdgeConnects, who's our host and sponsor for this meeting. Thank you, Don.
Thanks, Dan, and good morning and welcome to Chicago. Before I begin, one thing that strikes me when you look at an event of this quality and this size and this scale is the fact that there's volunteers, as Dan mentioned, but I think it goes without saying that a lot of effort goes in behind the scenes and a lot of countless hours. So please join me in a round of applause for the volunteers who put this together. So for EdgeConnects, this is, we were the host about 2 years ago, and as we think about the partnership that we've forged over the last few years with NANOG, certainly a lot has happened since that last event in Baltimore in the last 2 years. In short, we doubled our data centers active here in the US and opened our first data center, or on the cusp of opening our first data center in Europe. Suffice to say, there's a lot going on in the marketplace, and for a new entrant, a new data center company to come in and have that level of success and that level of traction is certainly an indication of things yet to come. But more important than our partnership with NANOG is the fact that, quite frankly, EdgeConnects as a company, as a business, our business model, our business plan has several roots and principles ingrained in our company that, quite frankly, came out of NANOG and the hard work of NANOG. So a recurring theme that I'll have this morning is the fact that what you do is important, and what you do does make a tremendous impact. And look no further than as EdgeConnects continues to go into the marketplace and expand and grow and succeed, a lot of our foundation really came from the hard work of NANOG. So no surprise, we're in a hyper-connected world. And I don't need to tell this audience, certainly, that the growth of the network and the growth around the world of connected devices and humans, in 2020, will we get to the point where nearly every human on the planet is connected? I don't know, but we're certainly going to approach that for sure. It might be a few years later, or it might be a few years earlier. Who knows? But certainly, the stats are there, the growth is there, and we've all been experiencing it. But I think it's more important as we think about the next chapter, the next inflection point, and it's less about the numbers, but it's about the scale. And as we look at the next phase, the connected devices, take a moment to just reframe. Look at the difference in that scale as you look to the right-hand side in 2020 when we think about connected devices. It's significant. And clearly it's real. Just last week, to give you a stat, I saw Netflix here in the US, 300 million devices connected to its service. Whether that's right or wrong, I think it's probably conservative. Some of you may know better, but it's certainly indicative of the fact that here's a specific service in a specific geography with a staggering number of connected devices. So the importance and the significance of networks, whether it's for our own personal use, or more importantly and increasingly, how we run our day-to-day businesses, is alive and well, and more importantly, its criticality, its dependence will become more and more significant. Now, 4 or 5 years ago, there was a lot of talk and a lot of discussion and a lot of work from NANOG on the edge. So to describe the edge to this audience, you already knew it. But what's most important here is now it's making it into the mainstream community of the enterprise, of the business, and more importantly, the consumer world. So the edge is being talked about, and everybody has a definition of what the edge is and what the edge isn't, but here are just a few examples. But clearly you know well the significance of the edge is here. So this requires us, as we reframe and think about the scale going forward of connected devices and connected machines, as has been the charter of NANOG for many, many years, it's rethinking those architectures, design principles, and operating principles, and as applicable, reassessing, reevaluating, and deploying. And if you think about all of the application layer type activity that's going on, that's changing our lives as consumers and as business people, what we're also starting to see now is the need to continue to change the underlying architecture. Software-defined network function virtualization. So all of the underpinnings of what is fueling a lot of growth in the data center business with regard to cloud and cloud adoption, we're in the first inning. 2/3 of enterprises today have moved less than 20% of their workloads to the cloud. The barriers to entry, the barriers to adoption are gone. The movement to the cloud for the enterprise is real, and it will increase in its pace. So with that, how significant, how important is the edge? When will operating parameters that we are used to in a day-to-day closed wide area network environment that moves now to a distributed environment, when will the architecture change and need to change, as it is already the case? But more importantly, what does that look like? I think the work done by NANOG will provide us the answer. And if you want a real great example, I think, of the impact of how the edge is changing, over the last few weeks, I think many of us saw some of the press releases with regard to the landing of 2 new submarine cables in the United States in Virginia Beach. Where's Virginia Beach? It's in the mid-Atlantic. It's kind of somewhat between New Jersey, one of the traditional landing station sites, and Miami. So unto itself now, operators, investors are thinking differently about networks. And this is just, I believe, the beginning of an increasing level of change that will come, most importantly, by defining the new edge. In this case, the new edge of submarine cable landing stations, which, oh, by the way, will have some of the largest capacity, both from a fiber count and density, that we've seen in a while. This will change traffic patterns. This will change buying patterns. This will change how we design and operate our networks over the next 5 years, and expect more to come. As we like to say, the Internet of Things, the Internet of Everything requires the Internet of Everywhere. As I said, I think you know this. Growth is inevitable, and more importantly, the pace and the explosiveness will only increase in the next few years. It'll be important that NANOG, as a group, as an entity, continue to challenge and to think into the future and show us what those next generation networks should look like, not only from an architectural standpoint, but from a characteristic standpoint. As I looked across the agenda, it was great to see a lot of the movement towards simply just thinking about technology and innovation, but equally including things like business acumen. Because certainly the continued pace and movement of change, it's easy and it's sometimes a very difficult challenge internally with many organizations to sell a new idea or new technology if you don't have the business implications, whether that's going to help increase revenue or take cost out of the business. So as I said, the agenda here, the broadening, if you will, of NANOG to bring to bear the potent power of not just technical acumen, but equally business acumen, I think is an important component, and I think will continue to make a difference. As you think forward, and again, go back to that reframing of the number of connected devices and the adoption and the movement of the cloud to the edge in a more distributed environment, we're seeing it. Just in the last few weeks for us, we launched a Amazon Direct Connect in Portland, Oregon. Why is Portland, Oregon significant? It sits squarely between Seattle and the Bay Area. But Amazon, recognizing the need to service customers with a more consistent experience from the standpoint of direct connectivity into their environment, picked Portland. So the cloud is moving. The cloud is moving to the edge, and as we all know, the demands and the capability on the network will be significant. So there's certainly a tremendous amount of challenge ahead. It's great that we continue to, as EdgeConneX, form our partnership, and we very much appreciate the partnership we've had with NANOG, and we continue to respect and enjoy the great work coming from the organization. So first and foremost, thank you. Have a great few days. Have a little fun. In that idea of having fun, we hope that you join us on Wednesday evening to howl at the moon. I don't have a lot of the details, but it sounds and looks like a lot of fun. So have a great few days, and we certainly appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. And just so for your reference, the invitations for the social will be available at the registration table, and you're expected to bring your NANOG badge to the social to show that you're an attendee. On behalf of the program committee, I'd like to welcome you again to NANOG 67. We're excited to bring you a program of talks, tracks, tutorials, and a panel discussion. The agenda will be posted on the NANOG site, which you may have to refresh if there are any changes, and it's also on the guidebook app, which uses a push model. And the PC volunteers will be attending the newcomers lunch to give an overview of the program to any new attendees of NANOG. And we also wanted to let you know, if you'd like to speak, we've opened 2 lightning talk blocks on Tuesday and Wednesday for short submissions of 10 minutes or less. And we'd love to have your submissions, give you a chance to speak to this audience. In preparing this program, the program committee itself is comprised of 18 members. As was discussed before, they're all volunteers, and we've been working since March on this program, which is entirely peer-reviewed. During that time, we also produced NANOG on the Road meetings in Raleigh and Denver. We just kicked off the first hackathon here in Chicago. And in roughly 2 weeks, we expect to release the call for presentations for NANOG 68. So thank you to the volunteers on the program committee. We do ask that you make yourself familiar with the NANOG attendee charter and also our microphone policy. The attendee charter is posted on the website, and the microphone policy is on each of the microphones. In short, what do I want you to be? I want you to be welcoming. I also ask that you be respectful. We can have differences of opinions, but we also have to leave room for other opinions in our community. And last of all, don't ruin it for everyone. We all work hard in our day jobs. We come here, attend a lot of meetings, and like to blow off a little bit of steam, but remember that each one of us is representing the whole network operator community.